And we are live.
Ta-da!
How was your week?
It was okay. How was your week?
I ran over my mailbox. Actually, it's really frustrating because so to me, it's a new car, right? I bought it new.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, I would say it's a brand new car. It's actually 5 years old, but it had no scratches on it anywhere. It's my little Subaru, and it's not happy. Neither was my.
What struck me when you said that, Heather, was I was trying to decide the correct facial expression before I ran over my mailbox. I was like, ha, oh.
Well, actually, and the worst part is it was mine and my neighbor's, and he very sweetly went out and fixed it the next morning. But I mean, I didn't tap it. His box was, I don't know. Anyway, I was just sort of chatting while people came on, and now everybody's on, so we're good. So welcome everybody, and it's lovely to see you, Joanne.
Likewise.
And I brought show and tell today. I wonder if I can see. So I have been cleaning out my study, and for years and years and years of work, and I had a lot of. I hate to throw stuff out that can be reused. So I had a whole stack of papers that I am now using for scratch paper that used to be handouts in class. Look at this one.
Wow.
The 12 largest cities and towns in 1790. So how cool is that? It's a fabulous map book I have, old map book I have.
Wow. Now you said the words show and tell before, and I grabbed show and tell, but I'm going to wait until the point in our conversation this morning when it's appropriate, because it's thematic show and tell.
All right. So let's get down to business here. Do you want to talk about Greenland? Do you want to talk about the economy? Do you want to talk about Minneapolis and the other places that ICE is operating? Do you want to talk about the weaponization of the Department of Justice? Do you want to talk about the president's mental health? Is anything good happening?
Yeah, no, you could just keep going. Living in historic times.
Yeah. That's what we say when we're in our rocking chairs someday.
That's true.
So to this week really ratcheted up stuff in a lot of ways. And let me run something by you. It seems to me, and this is seems, no, that every time the courts or members of Congress, especially when the Republicans chime in, stop Trump from doing something, he lashes out in some other way. So we've actually seen, in December of 2025, December 23rd, the Supreme Court said, nah, you really can't use the National Guard in the cities. That basically violates the Posse Comitatus Act. So what do we get next up? We get an attack on Venezuela. And then, every time he gets reined in, we get okay, now I'm going to take Greenland. And that dynamic of you can't make me strikes me as being one that all of us have recognized before in a colleague or a family member or whatever. But I do not understand why, especially the Republicans in Congress, keep going, oh, this time he's going to behave. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you. I think you can't make me. I can do what I want to do. And also, on top of that, not listening essentially to what courts say or not doing it in a reliable way, one way or another. I totally agree with you. I'll add on to that the fact that that's also a way of him showing how strong he is, that he can do whatever he wants, that it's a statement as well as a response. I think all of that is true. And yeah, I suppose we all have colleagues like that who behave in that way. They're not normally in a position that used to be considered the leader of the free world, quote unquote. What we're seeing is someone who is responding to everything as though it's a personal insult, and the repercussions, the only repercussions he thinks about are the repercussions on his reputation and his image, which is not surprising for someone who is as much of a narcissist as he is, but still the degree to which that is true, and literally, flames and people attacking Americans, killing Americans around him. And it's just not, think about your mindset, the degree to which you're doing things, you're having orders, you're not responding, people are dying, and it doesn't pierce your veil. I mean, that's not shocking at this point, but saying it out loud, it sounds shocking.
Well, so do you think, somebody asked me if we've ever had, and I'm not going to limit this to presidents, but an actual leader that like this. And somebody like Joe McCarthy comes to mind, the senator from Wisconsin who had the anti-communist scare in the 1950s. But I keep saying we're over a cliff here. We're in a completely uncharted waters. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, and I would emphasize the fact that, as a historian, I don't make those kinds of statements lightly, right? Like first, only, unique, never, because they're always wrong.
And I'm laughing because think of all the conferences we've been to where you're talking about something and somebody goes, that reminds me of something that happened in Korea in 1210, and in fact historians do just the opposite. We're always looking for, oh, this looks like,
right, like you never want to state that, because that person, the 1210 person is always lurking and is going to jump on your face if you say that thing. But no, we're as far as someone like this, we're just on new terrain. We have not had a leader like this before, which isn't to say that we haven't had leaders before who are encourage violence, who have poor morals, to be diplomatic about it. We've had a variety of different kinds of bad leaders before, but to the extent that this person is sort of, beyond the pale doesn't even capture it. He just is in his lack of morality, in his lack of respect for the Constitution and the rule of law, in his total focus on himself and his total disregard of the impact of everything that he does on anyone aside from himself. Yeah, I think we're off the rails doesn't work either. Yeah, we're on new terrain.
So let me ask you this, and just let me preface it by saying, I know that the demands that Trump is making are significantly greater than George III made. He had the Magna Carta very much in his face. He had Parliament reining him in, and so on. But did people in the colonies talk about George III's mental problems? And I'm not really entirely sure what they are. I know that he had a number of episodes that incapacitated him.
He had periphery. I'm not going to get the pronunciation right. He did.
I can spell it, but I can't say it. Yeah. But I don't know what that is. Is that one of those things where they had all these words for things in that era that we now recognize as different diseases?
Well, here's the thing about the colonists in the revolutionary and pre-revolutionary period. They were much more interested in figuring out the reasons, like the real constitutional reasons, other than, oh, it's all because he's mentally warped. So in other words, they were looking for plot lines, and they were looking for chains of logic. And while I'm sure some people were talking about his mental health or not, but not a lot, because to do that is to dismiss the violations of everything that the king was doing. Whereas everything that the king was doing ultimately, in their mind, was following a trail of violating their fundamental constitutional rights, and they had no way to come back against that. And that also was a problem. So they were much more focused on actual ground level sort of reasons of logic as to why things were happening, which, folks, go read the Declaration of Independence, because the grievances in the Declaration, I thought about this morning. I swear I did. I'm not just saying that because it's us. Because if you think of the grievances in the Declaration and the things that they're saying, he has soldiers, he's positioned soldiers among us. He is bringing people to trial, often in places far removed from where they're from. Read the grievances, and it's like, sometimes it feels like a script for this regime, right? It's what tyrants do. And that's at the end of the Declaration. One of the things it says is someone who does this is a tyrant who is unfit to rule a free people.
So this really jumps out at me, because when you and I talk about this moment, we talk basically about structures and about structures of democracy. And that strikes me that that might reflect the eras we study, because this whole look at why is Trump doing what he's doing, it strikes me that in the 19th century, my period, and I assume yours too, nobody really cared about why. There wasn't this sort of psychological what this guy is doing. It's that we don't care about the mechanism, we care about the outcome.
Right.
And we don't have any means to judge until we get the rise of modern medicine, we don't get the means, the ability to judge what's going in someone's head. Instead, they talk about it in religious terms. He's moral, he's not moral, he's possessed by demons or not demons, whatever they would be, or not. So that focus back on the structure and the structure of tyranny versus he's my guy and I like him, strikes me. I'm not sure anybody's really articulated that as a different way to approach tyranny, that because we are now in this period in which people react to Trump as a person, as opposed to part of a system, we're seeing things develop differently.
I would add to that, though. I think the structure of tyranny is a great way of thinking about it. I also think that sounds like something two political historians would say. But I would also add into the mix the spirit of tyranny, because that's a lot of what we're seeing right now, or feeling, not seeing, feeling right now is the spirit of tyranny. And by that, I mean the degree to which things that are being done now are being done explicitly to elicit feelings of fear, to make us afraid, to make us want to back down. And that, we wouldn't in the 21st century brand it necessarily with the word tyranny, which is, in the 18th century, that tyrant, they thought about that all the time. But that's what it is. That's what we're feeling is, ode to tyranny, right? The essence of tyranny.
Tyranny. Honestly, I'm not big into swag, but I think you should start a line of ode to tyranny, or ode to untyranny, ode to freedom.
Ode to freedom.
Somebody probably done that before. So I like that. I don't like tyranny, but I like the concept that we're talking about here, because one of the things that strikes me about this moment and how much it looks like the colonists pushing back against the ruling powers in the colonies in the 1760s, 1770s, is the degree to which, if you look at it structurally, as opposed to he's my guy, he's not, he's doesn't like women, he doesn't like black people or whatever, what you get is this larger argument that in which sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, all these things are in service together in this larger system to establish a tyrant. And one of the things that concerns me in this moment is you can see different factions in the US potentially hiving off and saying, well, I really like that he's going after the people I think are socialists, or I really like the fact he's going after women, or I really like, but the point is that once you have a system like this, those things are in service to that system, and anybody who thinks he's only coming for the Democrats is going to be in for a really rude awakening if, in fact, we permit a tyrant to run the country.
Well, right. So, and I like that point, because part of it is grounded on the idea that what these folks are about, they're happy to have us hive off, as you put it, right? What they want is division. What they want is for us not to be together. So if they can find ways to, piss off one group or another group, if they can find ways to divide us, all the better for them, because they're well aware, and you and I talk about this all the time, our power is in us. Our power is us. And that's what's happening now. Our power is in us coming together to express outrage at fundamental violations of all of our rights, everyone's rights, that we're all in this together. And if we begin focusing on one group or another group to the exclusion of all else, not only do we weaken ourselves in this fight, but we serve their purpose. They're all about getting one group of people to hate another group of people and using that to serve their purposes.
And by the way, the bots and trolls have just gone off the charts lately. Like there had been a lull after 2024 when a whole bunch of them disengaged. Right after the election, a whole bunch of them went away. They are so back, and they are. I mean, you can tell a lot of them, but boy, they are all over Blue Sky now, which they didn't used to be. And that's something to be really aware of. It's going to get worse and worse and worse before 2026, before the 2026 election, I'm sure. And that's really frustrating. But that, I did want to throw here, you and I both hear a lot, is it worth protesting? Is it worth speaking up? So yesterday I was reading the appropriations bills that are actually passing through the appropriations committees in Congress right now after not passing forever because the Republicans were fighting so factionally. They recognize now, the Republicans in charge recognize that they have to have Democratic votes. So they've actually passed, I think it's 9 of the 12 required appropriations bills. And what's interesting about them is that they basically ignored Trump's budget. They basically have restored funding, not all of it to its original levels, but they've basically restored funding to all kinds of things that Trump had cut and that the extremists wanted cut because they know their constituents want it. So, and it's interesting because I've seen almost nothing about this in the news, in part probably because they're trying to do it quietly. But that pressure of people saying, what the hell do you mean you just cut the voice of America? What do you mean you just cut? That mattered. And that has been restored. Now, one of my concerns is that people will say, oh, see, we didn't have a problem anyway. All we had to do was, jockey a little bit and the MAGA Republicans would come around. And that, I think, would be an incredibly dangerous lesson to take from that.
Well, that would, right? That they can do what they want and all we have to do is like pipe up a little bit and then see, it's all fixed. And yeah, that would be the wrong lesson to take from this moment. I mean, the right lesson to take from this moment is they are so hyper aware of the degree to which they do not have popular support of any kind. They are so hyper aware of the degree to which they're increasingly on a little island of hate and angst and that the public is not with them, that you're right. They're doing this quietly and secretly because it would look like they're caving in one way or another, but they're doing it in part, I think, explicitly, because if everything is as stark and horrible as it will be, if everything were to stay in place with what Trump wants it to be, they would lose even more support. So I think that's another defensive gesture, and it's a hidden defensive gesture because they don't want people to see that they're doing anything that suggests a lack of total strength in what they want.
But so I think that pushes this a step further, though, in the sense that, as you say, Trump's numbers are simply appalling. I think the number of Americans who want to invade Greenland militarily is like 4%. I mean,
who are those people?
People who just I don't even know. But as that happens, as that power and as the American people speak up, like I say, I think we're seeing the administration lashing out. And the degree to which this might be Stephen Miller as opposed to Donald Trump, I think has been underemphasized. But the ratcheting up of real violence in Minneapolis and St. Paul, first of all, but around the country in general, is truly horrific. And I don't, I was thinking about it this morning, like trying to wrap my head around it because they have to know that this has gone wrong for them. They have to know it. So when Stephen Miller gets out there, as he did yesterday, and as he did, I think again this morning, talking about how, Greenland has a teeny army and you have to be able to defend your territory and we should just take them over. And you're sitting there thinking, dude, first of all, this was many centuries ago. And second of all, Greenland has an alliance with the United States of America. So it doesn't need to have, that was the whole point, right? I mean, you're proving the opposite. I listen to that and I think, do they just want to hurt people? Is this like some fantasy of I'm the only person that's right and now I have the US military behind me and by God, I'm going to impose my will on the world? Or are they living in a fantasy world? Sometimes I think Trump is just in a fantasy world where he truly doesn't know what's going on. He sees the fires in Minneapolis and thinks that they're being caused by the protesters rather than as they actually are by the ICE agents. I don't know. I mean, like,
Well,
what?
I
That's
think,
weird.
yeah, well, I think he doesn't know. I mean, so both things in a sense can be true. I don't know what he knows or what he doesn't know. And at this point, I kind of don't care because it's the people around him who are facilitating all of this stuff. But, you know, I think on the one hand, if you truly believe that you are superior and that your kind, you know, white men are superior and that you deserve to rule everything and govern everything and that thus morality is on your side, then yeah, you're going to grab and get whatever you can grab and get. And so partly, I suppose it's a warped feeling of morality for what they're doing. But I also think it's desperation. And the way that you can tell that is the ever more increasing blatancy with which they're lying.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the lies are not that they always lie, right? It's like a regime of lies, but the degree to which, you know, I think it was CNN that had Christine Ohm talking on camera about how these men are trained and they know what they're doing and they're following rules. And then they put right alongside it ICE basically stomping on a woman on the ground. It was like, no, you know, like you can say it 800 times. And this is what I think they are underestimating the dynamic of this. They're ratcheting up the threats and the violence and ratcheting up the threats and the violence to try and convince people to shut up and sit down and be scared. And what they didn't necessarily count on is the American people responding to that by coming together increasingly in increasing numbers with increasing fervor and increasing outrage so that they thought they could just sort of bump, you know, sort of grab and destroy. And what they're creating is an ever more unified, ever angrier resistance. And so they're creating the power to destroy themselves.
It's like Batman.
How is it like that?
It's serious in a way, you know, that's like, you made me, right? To the Joker. Well, you know,
you had to bring me along there for a minute.
Well, you know what I'm referring to, right?
I know what you're referring to.
You made me, I made you, you made me. But I was going to say something more intelligent than that, I promise. The anger, so I think that's right. I also think that when I think about what they are doing, to me, it looks like the gangs after, here we go, being a historian, looks like the past to me. It looks like the gangs in the 1870s that roved around the American South, including the Ku Klux Klan and people who were murdering Black Americans and their white allies in the Republican Party. And the huge difference between then and now, of course, is, first of all, that the United States has more than 340 million people in it. And they have about 20,000 federal agents. And, you know, it's one thing to terrorize a teeny tiny town, which one can do somewhat easily. Growing up in teeny tiny towns, I could tell you stories. But it's a lot harder to terrorize a nation of 340 million people, not least because what we have now that they didn't have then is these.
Well, so that is precisely what I was thinking about this morning, because I was thinking about the revolution.
You're so much fun.
I know. As I was brushing my teeth, I was thinking about the fact that in the early stages of what becomes the revolution, I was thinking about Boston, which in many ways is comparable to Minneapolis, right? That a lot of stuff was happening in a place that, there you go. I was thinking about Boston. See, you came equipped with
props.
Absolutely. I was thinking about Boston, and I was thinking about how one of the challenges of those early times in the revolution was getting other places to understand what was going on in Boston, because they didn't have phones. They didn't have any form of quick communication. They didn't have the telegraph. And so it took a while for networks of newspapers to build up so that people could tell other places, look what's happening here. It's coming for you. That took effort.
Well,
this is a different world. And this is a world with or without social media. That's my bird.
Okay. That's Newbie, right?
No, that was
Rosie?
Boo. That's Boo.
Oh.
That's pre-Newbie. That's Boo. But that tool, can unite us and strengthen us with or without social media. I used to worry that, like, oh gosh, if Twitter goes away, then we don't have a way to connect. But being able to see things and spread things in that way matters enormously.
Well, that is where I sort of was hoping we would go. So I saw that Sarah Longwell of the Bulwark today did another focus group. She does focus groups, and honestly, I don't know how she does it, because it would make me crazy being like, "Don't you read anything?" But she does it and does it very well. And a lot of the stuff you and I are talking about continues not to filter through to an awful lot of Americans. And I think of the revolution, and I think about the 1850s and the ways in which people spread news. And that's not, that was not spreading propaganda, just making sure that somebody was actually paying attention. And I think we're doing that. I think more and more people are paying attention. I think there's more people, not just the sort of things you and I do, but like the people who are distributing pamphlets and distributing cards and distributing pottery with slogans on it and so on. But I'm a little bit gobsmacked. I don't know quite what else one can do. Do you have any? I mean, I feel like, what else can we do?
Right. Well, and part of this, and it's obvious, but I'll say it anyway, is that we, in the same way that for a long time we took democracy for granted, we took a functioning press, mainstream press, for granted, right? So they are not doing the thing that we always assume the press is supposed to do. And that is actually reporting on what's happening, and not both sidesing fascism, but actually saying, here are the things that are happening now, reporting. They're picking and choosing, again, to a degree that is almost sometimes ridiculous, like the ever ridiculous level of the lies coming out of the regime, the Trump regime. What else can we do? I mean, this is not an answer to that question. It's a little hokey, but it's why I find myself again and again and again turning to the fact that what we can do is find ways to come together locally, nationally, networky. It's in connecting with people and spreading information. Gets us, in a sense, ironically, back to the revolutionary era. But in the end, we can use technology in every way we can possibly use it to spread the word and make people understand not just the structure, but also the spirit of tyranny spreading amongst us. But it's in the human reality of this moment that people are going to understand the meaning of it and the strength of it. And that's what set off the revolutionary spirit was, oh, this is affecting people in their everyday lives. This is not a theory. This is not constitutional. This is not an ism. It's actually just a ground level culture of tyranny. It's not answering your question, but the human dynamic of it and the human toll of it is part of the importance and the power of this message, and which is why the killing of Renee Good, the human toll and the not only horrific but even symbolic nature of that murder. It's a mother, kids' toys in the glove box, that it couldn't be starker, the degree to which that is immoral and violates everything that you can possibly imagine. That matters. And the media, the mainstream media, might not have focused on that, but that's hard to miss. And it's part of why the lies right now from the regime are not working.
So you just said culture of tyranny at the local level. And I know Tim Snyder has a great article about strongmen and how you think they're going to be your strongmen, and they're really not, because they don't need you anymore. I think you just identified in a culture of tyranny the fear that somebody's going to stop you, hurt you, possibly kill you, and your neighbors. Right. Are there any other things that jump out to you about a culture of tyranny? Maybe the idea that you can buy your way out of breaking the law. One could buy, somebody who's well connected can buy themselves out of breaking a law the way is happening with the Trump administration, all these stupid pardons. He's just pardoned somebody for the second time after having committed fraud. And those of you who are on the wrong side of the regime end up going to jail for nothing, the way it happens in Vladimir Putin's Russia and happened to Evan Gerskovich just a couple of years ago, that kid from the Wall Street Journal. What else is in the culture of tyranny?
The idea, I mean, you're right, the idea that you can buy your way out, the idea that if you kiss up and if you're a good enough person to the person in power, that somehow or other you can find your way out, and that's how you get Americans or people turning on each other, right? If I do the right thing, if I do something to please that person with all the power, then they're going to be okay with me and they're going to like me and mine are going to be fine. So here's where they're hiding. There's that part of it too, which is part of it.
It never works. I mean, this is what makes my head explode. Every time Trump has a new pet, I think, what makes you think it's not going to,
Right. No, I think
what about brutality? I mean, this whole idea of a UFC, UFC fight on the grounds of the White House,
right?
The sheer brutality of our, sort of the government embracing UFC strikes me as being sort of like the stadium in Rome, which I'm sorry, I know nothing about Rome, so maybe I mischaracterized.
The gladiators, that you threw gladiators in with a variety of different wild beasts, and then or pitted them against each other, and then the emperor could deciding whether in the end the person or animal got to live or had to die. But I think it normalizes brutality in the most blunt way possible, right? It endorses it, in the same way, well, not in the same way, in a different way from how Trump normalized the idea of attacking the Capitol. This is normalizing, and then beyond that, glorifying that kind of brutality. And that's, the Roman Empire, that's what it was grounded on, actually, was order and structure and brutality and different levels of citizenship, that if you were a certain kind of person from a certain kind of place, you might get better rights than somebody else. But the brutality of the Romans, notorious, that was part of their power. And the fact that they, marched together and they were very structured so that they could, predictably march, kill, and destroy. One of my favorite things about, this is a sentence I'm going to utter. One of my favorite things about the Roman Empire is they marched in order, in structure, linked together, but they had a real problem with elephants, Hannibal and the elephants. You can't march in order against an elephant. And I remember studying this in grad school, and I was like, just enough power and you just like their structure doesn't work, which is a lesson that we can relate to now, right? At a certain point, you have enough power, not that we're going to be an elephant, but we can claim that kind of power of an ability to crush structures that are trying to crush us.
I'm back here with Hannibal and the elephants, but I like that a lot. And of course, you and I were trained very differently because our degrees are different. And I never studied the Romans, except the roads. I studied the roads a lot.
What have the Romans ever done for us? Do you know my thoughts on?
Well, but the roads are huge. I mean, infrastructure is so huge. That seems like a really good place to end this. That, I don't know about you. I'm exhausted, and I don't mean sleepy exhausted, although that too. More like really like every night you're looking at your phone going, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? But it does not, it continues not to feel to me like they're holding all the cards. It feels increasingly desperate. Trump is increasingly falling apart. And I guess that's part of us becoming an elephant, right?
Right. So here's what we need to become the elephant. It's my prop, my show and tell. Chutzpah. Oh we need a can of chutzpah.
You don't just have that in the house, right?
Yeah, well, I do, as a matter of fact. But I bought it recently. There was an exhibit downtown on Anne Frank at the Jewish Museum, and they were selling sourced within the 5 boroughs authentic chutzpah. So I figured I needed some chutzpah, and we all need some chutzpah.
There you go.
So anyway, I will say crass self-marketing, but I do also will also mention my YouTube channel. I was going to say page, and I can't say it without you imagining you jumping on my face. My YouTube channel, where I'm increasingly adding stuff about this moment, because, as you said, I'm exhausted, you're exhausted, everyone's exhausted, and everyone is looking to someplace for feedback and community, and that's actually a thing you can get from this kind of thing.
Especially you've just started adding stuff for people who can't sleep at night.
Yeah,
and I think that's freaking genius. I mean, that's not my problem, but you know, there's nothing worse than sitting there with your little hamster wheel spinning.
Right.
And knowing that somebody else's hamster wheel is also spinning. Is there a certain time you do those, or is it just like, I'm getting out of bed to do?
Well, so far I've done it like 3 or 4 times, and so far it's spur of the moment. It honestly is like, I'm tired now, I think I'm going to go to bed, but before I do, I'll do this. A few thoughts for those who can't sleep, I think, is what I called it. And it's, you know, they're normally short. It's just whatever occurred to me that day, that, you know, not casting about, let me find something good, but something that I thought of that day that helped me ground myself in this moment. So I can't promise I'm going to do it every night, because that's a lot, but I'm going to routinely put stuff up there. And so far it doesn't have its own category yet, because I've only done it 3 or 4 times, but it's really obvious there on that page. If you want to join us, the reason why I mentioned people looking for community is that the first time I did it, there were like 4,000 people there.
So first of all, I love that. And second of all, someday I want you to ask me on so I can read everybody a bedtime story.
Oh, okay.
I read to my kids until literally they were in college, because I do all the voices and everything. They read it themselves as well, but it was a thing. And of course I have grandchildren now, but I someday I'll come read you some of my favorite bedtime stories.
I love that idea. Excellent.
Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's a long weekend, I think.
Not for me, but maybe for some of you, for a lot of you, and enjoy the long weekend. Have a wonderful week. I will see you again on Saturday, if not before.
You'll see me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you'll see them at other stuff.
Well, I'll see them all over the place. No,
Okay.
I'll see them Friday. I'll see them in the evening. I'll see them, but I will see Saturday, if not before.
Sounds great. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and let's just keep the faith and keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Okay.